welcome to my channel. Today I'll be sharing with you two new fall farmhouse decor DIYs. The first one I'll be showing you is a vertical home sign, and the second DIY are some wooden pumpkins. All of the projects that I made today are made with materials mostly from Hobby Lobby and Dollar Tree. If you guys want to see how I created them, then just keep watching. The first DIY today is this vertical home sign, and for this project I'll be using a vertical beware sign from Dollar Tree, unfinished wood letters from Michaels, a decorative pumpkin from Hobby Lobby, Waverly chalk paint in the color ink, Americana chalk paint in the color lace, folk art chalk paint in the color castle, painter's tape, paintbrushes, jute, and my hot glue gun. I'm starting by cutting the lace ribbon off of the sign and then flipping it over since that's the side I'm using. And then I'm taking my painter's tape and I'm applying it on both sides of this sign, and I'm using the little cutouts at the top as my guide to make straight lines. Once I have my painter's tape applied, then I'm taking my chalk paint in the color lace and I'm painting the two outer sides of this sign, and I did have to do 2 coats of this paint. After my paint has completely dried, I'm going to be peeling off my painter's tape. Then I'm going to be placing it about 1/8 of an inch away from that lace color that I just applied. I'm going to be making what appears to be wood slats, and then I'm going to be painting my chalk paint in the color castle along that lace color and my painter's tape to make my lines. After that paint is dried, then I'm peeling off my painter's tape. Originally I was going to do multiple colors on this sign, and then I decided to stick with just the 2. So here I'm taking that lace color and painting it in the center, and then along the castle color I painted on to make my slat lines. It would have been a lot easier for me to just paint the entire sign in this lace color in the beginning and then put on my painter's tape and create my slat lines, but I did it the hard way. Once I have this paint color all dry, then I'm going to be taking some more painter's tape and applying it in the center of the sign, using those cutouts again as a guide to make my lines straight. I placed my tape about 1/8 to 1/4 inch apart, and I painted in between in the color castle. Once that paint was dry, then I just peeled off my tape. Now I'm taking my color castle and I'm dry brushing that over top the entire sign. I'm focusing on the edges so that they look really distressed. Once I have that color painted on, then I'm going to be taking the color lace once again, and I'm dry brushing that over top where I made my lines. I wanted those to look distressed as well and not newly painted on, and I'm just dabbing my brush over top of the lines. Now that I have my sign all painted, I'm moving on to my letters, and I'm using the Waverly chalk paint in the color ink. I'm painting all 3 letters this color, and I'm making sure that I'm getting around all of the edges since you'll see them when they're glued down. I did only have to do 1 coat of this paint. Once my paint's all dry, then I'm placing the letters and my little wooden pumpkin that I picked up from Hobby Lobby on my sign to make sure that everything's centered before I start attaching them. To attach my letters and my pumpkin, I'm using a pretty good amount of hot glue along the back side, and then I'm pressing them down onto my sign. You could always use E6000, which works great as well. When doing this, I was working really quickly with the hot glue since it does dry really fast. For the last step in this DIY, I'm taking a piece of jute and I'm putting it through the holes that were already made in this sign to make my hanger. I'm making some pretty large knots along the back side so that the jute doesn't come through the holes that were already made. And this is the finished sign. You could always use a small wreath or something different instead of the pumpkin if you wanted to use this sign year round. Let's move on to DIY number 2, which are these wooden pumpkins. For this project, I'll be using 3 scrap pieces of wood that I got in a bag of wood from Hobby Lobby, 3 wooden caps, Americana chalk paint in the color lace, Waverly chalk paint in the color pumpkin and also in the color hazelnut, folk art chalk paint in the color java, my hot glue gun, paintbrushes, jute, scissors, Spanish moss from Dollar Tree, and raffia from Dollar Tree. I'm starting by painting my largest piece of scrap wood in my chalk paint in the color lace. I'm painting my middle-sized piece of wood in the chalk paint color pumpkin, and then I'm painting my smallest piece of wood in the color hazelnut, and I only had to do 1 coat. After my paint has dried on all of my wooden pieces, then I'm taking the color Java and I'm dry brushing that over top of all of my wood, and I'm focusing along the edges to make them look distressed. For the stems of my pumpkins, I'm going to be using these wooden caps and I'm painting them in that Java color. Once the Java color has dried, then I'm going to be taking that lace color and dry brushing that over top of them to give them more of a distressed look as well. Next up, I'm using some hot glue to attach the stems to the tops of my pumpkins. I'm putting the hot glue right on the bottom of the cap and then centering it right on the top of my wood. Next, I'm adding some raffia to each one of my pumpkins. I'm just tying it around the stem and then using a little bit of hot glue to attach it and keep it in place. And then I thought it needed a little something extra, so I'm taking a very small piece of Spanish moss and just hot gluing that around the top by the raffia. I did do the same thing for all 3 of the pumpkins with the raffia and Spanish moss. I also trimmed the ends of the raffia to make them a little bit shorter. And these are the pumpkins all finished. They were so easy to make and I just love how they turned out. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe. Be sure to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching.